two, one. Welcome back to another episode of AT Talks. This is the first episode on topic 5, undervalued skills. We're back with Eli, and we're back with Leah. Not Leah. Leah.
Leah, get it right.
You want to give like a one or
Not
two
the princess.
You want to give a 1 or 2 sentences on where you're practicing at? Let the world know.
Ladies first.
So I'm Leah. I am practicing in the Napa Valley currently, but will soon be relocating to the greater Sacramento area. So,
Which is
and I'm transitioning from the college to the industrial setting.
Nice, that's awesome. My name is Eli, and I am transitioning all the time. I'm currently in a college setting and work with also Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athletes on the side of contract work in St. George, Utah. And yeah, so good times.
Yeah. And my name is Tom. I'm in Northwest Indiana, probably 35, 40 minutes away from Chicago. And I'm not transitioning. I'm at a secondary high school and the concussion clinic, and I've been here coming up on 2 years in June. So undervalued skills, what do we think?
So, all right, I got you.
I'm the host.
So,
I'm not
undervalued
going
skill. No, I'll go first. I don't mind. I just always feel bad because, like, I'm always the guy I'll just jump in there, but I want to be respectful.
You have a great personality, and you just ooze charisma.
Yeah, no.
That's true.
You had me at hello, Tom. No, I appreciate it, man. But it's good. It's something that I'm passionate about, and I do enjoy speaking and talking to people and stuff. I do got a lot to say on this type of stuff because, I've been at it now for an athletic training for 8 years now total. And I've had students and interns and stuff, so I've gotten a lot of experience, I guess, over the years. I guess being a mentor, if you will, or whatever. And some of the things that I've seen over the years, at least in my experience, and we talked a little bit about it right before we started, was just soft skills kind of being an undervalued skill, and more specifically in dealing with your athletes and your coaches and your team physician, your strength staff, just a lot of different personality traits. So I think like one of the undervalued skills that can't. I guess it can be taught to a degree, but it's just not taught in school. And so learning to understand the different personalities, and then once you understand that, how do you address those personality traits into doing, accomplishing the goals that, at hand, whether it's rehabbing an athlete or communication with the coaching staff or getting what you want from your team physician as far as, imaging or things that you want done for specific athletes if they're not happening, and understanding how to get through to certain people, I think is definitely an undervalued skill.
I think jumping off or like kind of piggybacking on that a little bit too is like not necessarily like just the like changing who you like or how you communicate with somebody to like get the directive that you want, but also like to be the person that they need you to be in that moment. So like if you have athletes that aren't like that need to be broken down from their like entitlement, and you need to break through to them and get them and kind of like be a hard ass a little bit. Ooh, am I allowed to say cuss words? Okay.
We're all adults.
We're all
My
adults,
virgin
not
ears,
a
no.
But like being a hard ass a little bit so that they're able to kind of get off their horse and realize that like what you're doing is for them, but at the same time, like that's how you need to communicate with them. If that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't think I think a lot of people have one approach. This is how I am. This is how I like to do things, and they try to apply that approach to everybody and everything, and then they wonder why they get so much pushback and why it's so hard to win over so many different people. And it's just because you're going at it one way, and everybody's different, and you have to be able to change, even if just temporarily, just for the conversation. Change how you normally would talk to someone or try to win them over. Put the ego at the door and be like, okay, I know that this coach likes A, B, and C. So I'm gonna come at the conversation from A, B, and C. Even if you're not that typical type of person, that's what you have to be able to do. So I agree 100% with that.
Online. No, sorry.
That's fine.
Fine. I was just going to piggyback off of that, and even you know, kind of one thing that I think will helps too is when people go through coaching staff changes, because I've seen that happen where if you're working with the same group of people and you finally learn like how to kind of deal with those certain people for so long or however many, you know, years that you're together, but then when there's a disruption in it and all of a sudden you have new staff, whether it's new out there training staff, new coaches, new players and stuff, like it's being able to now adapt to the new crew, like the new staff. And although that you've been there for a long time, I think it, like you said, Tom, like a lot of people have a hard time kind of set in their ways. And then when you get like a new coaching staff, they have a hard time kind of adapting because it's like, well, I've been here for this long. This is how it's always worked. This is how it's always been done. But then, and they kind of turn off the, you know, thought process of trying to understand who they're now working with, and will the same things, you know, will the same tactics apply to the new people that they're working with. So I think that's really important as well, like to make sure that you're willing to change and adapt kind of always, and not get complacent, because I think a lot of times people do get complacent, and then when you have those staff changes, it can kind of become pretty hard to, I think, adjust for some people.
Yeah, being able to grow and go outside your comfort zone and to be challenged is huge. And I have a lot of young professional friends, and one of the biggest issues they have is that it's very hard for them to implement change because that's the way it's always been done. We've been doing this for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Now you're forcing me to change. What's wrong with you? We can't change. This is how we do it. And then that can take a toll on you for a while if you keep smacking that barrier for, you know, a month, a season, a year. I get it. What's the dog's name?
Her name's Cora.
Hey, Cora.
Mama, look at Mama.
She's cute.
Look at.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sorry, she likes to get loves all the time. It's part of the husky in her. Sorry, I got us off topic.
Yeah, she don't even know what the topic is right now.
It's fine. It's fine.
No, I would agree. I do think that it's hard to change people who are not as flexible as we are. But I think and like, I'm a big advocate for stop biting. I'm a big advocate for education as being that grounds of like forcing change. Like, I'm making you change not because I don't like you, not because I don't want you to be sick. Like, I'm making you change because I want you to be successful. I'm making you change because the way that you're doing it is inefficient, or like having the structure behind the why, like not just being like, change, you need to change, like end of story, like do better, be better. It's more so, we need to change because of X, Y, and Z, or this is the gold standard that we need to get ourselves to. So
and I think and then something else to kind of, what that made me kind of think about too is kind of an additional undervalued skill is, I think, being able to separate practicality from like emotion, like being practical and being emotional. Because I think sometimes with that change and stuff, I think with people, it becomes more of a emotional decision. They have a hard time, I think, changing because there's an emotional attachment to it, like, you know, out of their comfort zone and or whatever it is. Everyone kind of has their own things, but I think ultimately, another skill is being able to separate your just being practical from being emotional in your decision making. Like, you know, with an athlete, you know, says something to offend you, for example, and then, you know, your emotional response obviously is to, you know, come back at them or get in or whatever it is. Everyone has different responses and how they react. But I think it's really important in the work setting specifically, to being able to kind of control your emotions and be the same person, you know, every day, and learning how to adjust for those things, and so that where you can basically try and take out the emotion and think about the situation in a more logical and practical fashion, and try to make the logical decision and what's best for the program, the athlete, the situation at hand, basically. That was just kind of something else that you kind of, when you were talking about, kind of crossed my mind, because I think some people, it can become hard to change because it's just part of their emotional, it's just part of them.
I think it's funny that you say that, because as you're speaking, it's making me think about how undervalued self-reflection is. Because one of the things with young professionals is I feel like when we come straight out of college, and straight out of like our residency or our GA-ship or just out of college, we're like, I know everything. Like, this is me. I'm going to be the world's best athletic trainer. I'm never going to get anything wrong. And so with that, I think is a component of like self-reflection is an undervalued skill. Like the ability to say that, like, I am not very good at looking at, elbow injuries, or, my forte is not rehabilitation in the pool, or like understanding our weaknesses and being able to work through them, or if not work through them, be able to, mama, relax, please, go see daddy. But to be able to like work through our own issues, and then also to be able to like live in our strengths too, like knowing that you're a dang good like knee rehabber. You can look at anybody's knee and like create a 30-minute rehab for them every day of the week, and it'll never be the same or something. Like, I don't know, I'm kind of going on a tangent with that, but
Well, I think it's important to maximize your strengths and to minimize your weaknesses, but you can't hide from your weaknesses. You have to acknowledge that they're there. And when you self-reflect, you get to take a step back and take a look at the big picture of, hey, what we did well was this. What we did not do well was this. And that's where you're going to grow, because that's when you're going to recognize, hey, our policy failed here. We need to change this. Or my response failed here and we need to change this. Or I don't have the proper connections and relationships with A, B, and C, so we failed as a team. So that's huge, to be able to reflect, take a step back, and then see what happened and try to understand it and get better.
And I think people are afraid to reflect sometimes, because then they have to voice or itemize their weaknesses. And I don't think people are always inclined or in tune to their weaknesses. And it's scary, like, to make yourself vulnerable and to talk about what you're doing poorly or what you can improve on is definitely like not an easy thing to do. And if you're not in a healthy environment, like if you're already dealing with like mental health issues or like work-life balance at your current place, like talking about some of your issues or like poor habits or anything like that just like kind of exasperates them a little bit, I'd say. So.
I agree. Yeah, no, I think it's like self-reflection and self-awareness are huge, but I think that depending on the person and if the kind of like mental health state that they're in can drastically affect them and like how no one wants to show their vulnerability. Like some people, like for me, like it's easier for me to do it, but for some it's not, and that's okay. Everyone's got different personality traits, but like I think it's really important to just to be able to understand it and see it, but then think it through, like, okay, well, here are my weaknesses, like, okay, like, so what? Like, there's no one's going to be perfect. Like, I'm not going to be a perfect clinician. I can't be the best at like everything, and I'm not. And I vocalize that with my team and my staff. For example, I started working baseball here like a month or two ago. I know nothing about baseball. I'm very open about it. I know nothing about the sport. I know athletic training, but like, I don't understand baseball biomechanics, but what do? Obviously I reach out to some of my baseball friends and I try and learn, but I don't hide from the fact. I don't pretend that I understand baseball mechanics to the max. And so, and if I, and, oh, what am I trying to say? And if it's something, and to me, it's thinking about from sharing my vulnerability, like, what am I afraid of for me personally? Like, and it's afraid of what? Like being judged, being fired, being let go, being thought of as not a great clinician. Like what ultimately is going to happen to me specifically? And that's kind of my thought process in it, and trying to like kind of overcome that. And ultimately, like, it's nothing like, it's not like I don't understand baseball. Okay, now I'm gonna get my leg chopped off. Like, that's not gonna happen. It's not gonna be. It's not like the end of the world. So I think for people, trying to admit their weaknesses, I think is a strength, and but also understanding their strengths is obviously kind of super important and kind of goes hand in hand with that. But also, sorry, I'm just rambling. I'm just
It's okay.
going
You're
off.
fine.
I
We're
think
all
it's really.
ramblers.
I know. I guess I could say so much about it, and it's just because it got me also thinking. Like, I think it becomes more important the longer that you're in either this profession or any kind of profession. But the longer that you're in it, and then the higher up you go, if you become in a more like a supervisor or administrative or a management type role, I think that becomes even. I mean, I think it's important, period. But like, I think it's harder for people that are in the profession long enough to be able to admit their weaknesses and do that. And I think it's most important with them, because then you're hiring staff, right? And if you've got a person who's in charge, and he or she understands his strengths and his weaknesses, then really he or she should look at hiring a staff to fill the gaps.
Yeah.
Like, understand their weaknesses. Okay, well, what kind of staff member do I need to hire? Versus like, oh, they interviewed well, he's a great person, he's really smart, hire him. Like, go into more depth. You need to understand your staff. It's like coaches recruit players in a team to find the right pieces to create a successful team in a program. Same thing goes for athletic training, I think. And I don't think enough people look at it that way. So I think being able to, understand that and then hire your staff according to fill the gaps. And you can't do that if you don't understand, where your weaknesses are at.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it's so important for like in the secondary setting is to make those relationships with everybody, because let's look at automatic weaknesses. If I get there at 1, I'm not there all day. So if I have someone who needs help, where they're going to go? The school nurse. So we need to be on the same page so she can cover me. I don't have the resources to do rehab. We have a huge fitness center, but I don't have those resources in my office, my facility. So I need to work with my fitness staff or the teachers to make sure they follow academic accommodations. I'm weak in all those areas just because I'm only there for a little bit of time and I'm limited in my resources. And that's not even where I'm weak in all the athletic training areas, because I have tons of weaknesses. The longer you're in this profession, the more you should realize that you know very little. There's so much more to learn. And I have weaknesses in all 5 domains, just everywhere. So it's huge. And
I
it's okay.
think like as a young professional, like when I started reflecting, because I'm a like pretty reflective person, I'd say. One thing that I realized is that I don't want a position where I'm by myself anymore, because I don't like not being able to bounce ideas off of people. Like, if I'm looking at a shoulder and I'm like, oh, I don't know, this could be A or B, like, and I want another person's opinion, I have to send them to a doctor to do that. And like, here, especially, like, I have so many challenges with getting people in to see physicians, because our team physician is 40 minutes away, and like stuff like that. So it's like they're not coming to campus for every Tuesday, Thursday for 3 hours or anything like that. We're always contracting out. So I'm like, I'm so alone. And when I need my weaknesses like complimented, I just don't feel that like connection happening. And it's difficult to like grow in some of those expansions. Like, I mean, I can eval a shoulder till I'm blue in the face, but I don't know if the fifth test that I think is positive is because of fatigue or not, like that kind of thing. So I think it's hard to grow alone.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Agreed. And that's why we've got Twitter and other avenues to, hopefully, of course, other things, but I think like the social media part of it with athletic training, I think is huge. I think doing this type of stuff is great because it gets us all, connected, especially for those of you that are kind of in those singular settings where you're not connected with so many other people. I think, finding ways to kind of fill that void is huge.
The only issue with Twitter is if you openly put that out there, you're going to have some people that are like, oh, I think A, B, and C. And then you're going to have some people that are going to put unfavorable responses.
Yeah.
Any other undervalued skills that we can think of? It was a lot of like adapt yourself to personalities and make connections and be open and reflect.
Yeah, I think those are the biggest things. Oh, go ahead.
We got 10 minutes to fill, so let's go.
Time efficiency. One of the things that I found has been very beneficial is making things convenient. Like, for example, like we say, like, if you have two people that are rehabbing an ankle, you can make them rehab together, make some competitions, make it fun. But I think also like time efficiency, like in regards to if I have someone who I want to go through mobility exercises, making it something that they only have to come in 5-10 minutes earlier for practice to do, or they only have to stay for 15 minutes afterwards, like making it so that it's convenient for them to get more buy-in. And then just better time management, because that's always a skill that needs to be utilized heavily in athletic training specifically. So
yeah, and I think the easiest way to create buy-in is you have to keep it simple, which I think a lot of us are really bad at because we think simple is bad. Like if it's simple, it's not good enough, and which is really stupid. And it has to be fun. If it's not fun, no one's gonna want to do anything. Especially
what, you don't want to stand on a physio ball, like doing a barbell squat with a resistance band around your elbows or something?
That's
and bouncing a soccer ball on your head.
Don't ever do that.
Oh, I forgot about that part too.
Anything you want to add on that, Eli?
No, I think that actually, yeah, you bring up a great point, because that's something I struggled with early on in my career, was that being like efficient time management stuff part of it. I think a lot of young professionals struggle with that too, because it's like you said, I think that's really important. And I think for me, it was like, I remember early on, it was just like learning on when I can like do those rehabs and like, tag team certain athletes together, or bring in some of my longer term rehabs during practice instead of doing them at the same time with the rest of the team, and trying to manage your time so that, you're being efficient throughout the day and kind of filling some gaps without being like, okay, let me just go work for 15 hours a day and just sit here all day and then knock everybody out. There's always a way you can manage something, and making sure that you're using your, your coaches and people around you to explore options, and not just accept that like, hey, like this is the way that it is. Like, explore different time management, ideas and things, and kind of see what you can experiment with and what works. I think that's a great one. Good call.
Yeah, and I think being efficient is really tricky, because we all have a lot of documentation to do, right? So if my basketball team is practicing 3 to 5:30 on the court, well, they're most likely not going to need me from 3 to 5:30. And you can spend an hour and a half doing documentation, but then you're not making yourself available. You're not making yourself seen and known. And you're not building relationships. So it's like you can do a little bit, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Hey, how you doing? Doing great. All right, I'm right here if you need me. Do a little bit more. But it's always tricky, Time management's hard. Does it get easier? Does it get easier with experience, Eli?
It gets easier, but the athletes are still as difficult as when I was first starting. Some of them.
What'd you want to say, Leah?
Oh no, I'm just laughing because I was like, "Ooh, really? It doesn't get better."
Yeah, it doesn't get
It does. It does. I was actually having this conversation a little bit with my roommate slash best friend,
Is that
who's
Bruno?
actually Bruno.
What's up, Bruno?
Yes. Hey,
Oh
Bruno. Tom
wow.
says, "What's up?"
What's up?
Hi Bruno. I haven't met you, but hi.
And Leah says hi too.
Check out the Eli Kassab experience. Bruno's got an
He's
episode on there, deeply impactful episode. Very serious topic.
yeah. And for you guys don't know him, but that was a hard one because he's not. He won't talk about that in public. But so
Yeah,
it was
cliffhanger.
nice of him.
Go look it up. Go to his
Ooh, okay.
Twitter and look it up. I think one of the things we do a really bad job of is building our brand and building our identity and perception to the people around us, where a lot of people in our own house, in our own school, our own administration, our coaches have no idea what we are and what we do because our brand just isn't there. And when you say, hey, I'm medical, and they go handing out ice as a medical, and you're like, oh man, I do 50 other thousand things besides handing out bag of ice. We just don't have the branding, which is something I work extremely hard for at East Chicago, which is my high school.
I think it's funny that you brought that up. I had a conversation with a fellow athletic trainer recently, and that was one kind of thing that came up was, making sure that, because with athletic training, we get kind of tunnel vision in our training room, and we kind of forget about all of that. And that was one thing that kind of came up, and one thing I suggested was doing some of that with, with the other departments and strength and conditioning, administrative, coaching, like, the janitorial staff, and like just making sure that not just the departments are all aware of you and kind of us and what we do and things like that is really important, like you said, and really impactful in a lot of ways. And so that, especially, when it comes to, with salary and just like having our backs and things like that, there are times where that comes into play, where having those people, having that branding can help you out significantly, if whether it's in a lawsuit situation or something as simple as asking for a raise, like that's the way to kind of go about it. So that's a great point.
Do you ever feel like it can come back to like bite you in the butt a little bit? Because I know, like, when I started advocating for athletic training a little bit more on my campus, like saying like, this is what I do, this is like who I am, it started to, oh, hey, like, can I get my ankle taped for intramurals? Or, hey, like, can I get my wrist tape? I'm about to go like lift heavy tonight. Like, no.
Put a
But
stop to that.
yeah, because that's one of the things that, like, as I became more of like a friendly face between the athletes, and like students started seeing me, working with professors and scheduling my meetings like on campus, so that I wasn't down in my cave of the gym, because like our athletic training room is like right off our baseline, so I am like stuck down in the gym like 24/7, to be honest. So I started trying to schedule meetings at other places, like going to our coffee house on campus. And so when I became more of like a face on campus, I found that more people were comfortable asking me to do things that I'm like, nope, sorry, can't do that. Nope. Mm-mm. So.
I feel like I haven't experienced any negative side effects from getting my name out there and getting the profession and the brand out there. But I'm also very easygoing when stuff like that comes up. If my maintenance guy comes in and goes, hey, I have some shoulder pain, can you take a look at me? I don't care, that's fine. I'll spend 15 minutes with the dude and I'll give him a rehab plan. Not an issue for me. Others have issues with that, but I don't. I'm not concerned about, well, you're contracted to treat the high school athletes and he's staff, and I'm here to make an impact. I'm gonna make an impact. End of story.
Yeah. And yeah, and I think you're going to get, and I've definitely seen like both ends of that spectrum. And I think that just depends on the individual, I think, and I absolutely do run into that. It's like, when when I get to family get-togethers, it's like all of a sudden it's like, hey, Eli, my back, my elbow, my knee. It's like, oh, hey, great to see you, Uncle. And so all of a sudden everyone's asking you for stuff. So, but I think in how you go about, so I think that does, but having it be like a negative or positive, I guess, kind of depends on how you look at it. But I think as far as the individual goes, like Tom was saying, like you're totally fine with it, but sometimes, and maybe you're in a certain setting where all of a sudden there's just too many to do. Then you've obviously got to start setting some boundaries. So I think in that instance where you have some of those things that start happening, it's basically learning how to understanding your boundaries ahead of time, so that when and if that stuff kind of comes up, then you kind of have a heads up on how to handle it without burning, bridges, obviously.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you, I do get very defensive if someone walks into my office and demands something. Then I will be more likely to say no. Like if my athletic director, and just saying, if she walked in and she's like, you need to look at my knee because it don't feel right, I'm gonna be like, whoa, hey. But if you just come in saying, hey, when I play basketball, I have some knee issues. What do you think, Tom? Like, I